Yes, I'm going to shock you a bit because I like to shock people, and I think that's why I talk about vaginas. 140 million women worldwide have been mutilated, and some of those women are women that I really, really care about and love. And yet somehow I didn't know what FGM was. At the age of 13, I was a bit of a rowdy teenager, wasn't really paying attention much in school. And one of my English teachers was actually talking about gender-based violence. And she asked, Muna, do you know what FGM is? Again, I wasn't paying attention. And I thought it was an acronym for a bank. And she looked at me and she was like, my God, this child. And said, go home, Google what FGM is, and then come and talk to me the next day. And that piece of homework pretty much set me up for the rest of my life, and it determined the course of my life. I get home and I use Wikipedia, which was a teenager's Bible at the time. I think it still is because my brother still does it. And I started reading around the stats to do with FGM, and it said that 98% of women from Somalia had gone through FGM. And I thought, my God, what's happened to my mother, my aunt, my grandmother? What is so wrong in our society that someone thought that was okay? Long story short, I go into school the next day, really angry, and I couldn't really sit still. And the teacher, again, who's a really good friend right now and a director of the charity, was like, oh, what did you find out? And I said, we really need to do something. This doesn't feel right. We need to do something. And myself and 3 other girls ended up creating what would become Integrate Bristol. And our first ever project was a poetry booklet, and we sold that and had great feedback, but yet it still just didn't feel enough. So the next thing that we did was we spoke to a team and we decided to do a radio production, and we were asking all the questions: why does FGM happen, and why is it happening to women? And that's when all hell on earth broke loose, and rumour mill started turning. And our head teacher the next day gets a call, and they say that 75 irate elders are on their way and they want to shut the project down. As a teenager, you kind of like angering people, especially when they say they're elders. So I was just like, yeah, cool. Our head teacher didn't think so. And he was ready to shut the project down. But what happened was the senior leadership team at our school were all, unfortunately for him, women. And they said, if you shut this project down, we are all going to resign, and we're going to tell everyone why we resign. And that's the first time we actually realized the impact that we could have in our own schools. The irate elders disappeared for a while, and we were kind of like, oh, this is great. And some of our other friends joined. So we went from being 4 girls to 27 girls. And we really wanted to create a film, but the one big difference with this project was we wanted to put our names on it. And we wanted people to know that we were doing this work in Bristol. But again, rumour mill started turning. And apparently we were making pornography and we were taking ecstasy. And I remember my mum coming home and was like, Muna, apparently you're making a porno and you're on drugs. And I was like, wow, Mum, my life really isn't that exciting. And she was fuming. And I tell you, 75 irate elders might scare you, but a barely 5-foot Somali mother is something else. And she went storming into that school and was like, you know what, no one's going to talk about my daughter in that way. And again, it was a first for nearly all of us girls, because this was an issue that our parents had been fighting for their entire lives. It was an issue that has impacted them and their families. Our grandmothers were having the same fight. And I guess to a point, it all really saddened us that we were, at this generation, still having the same fight as our parents were. And, we did other stuff after that, Newsnight, and we met Gove as well and got to talk to him about clitorises. That was fantastic. But, every time I see the younger generation, I always think, if I ever had a daughter, I really do want her to fight for something that is right. And I want her to be for equality and be able to stand somewhere and speak about what she really wants to speak about. But I don't want her to have the same fights that I'm having, and my mother did, and my grandmother did. So that's it from me, I guess.